Hey everyone, what's going on? It's the Oreo Monster. Welcome back to Logic.band, and today I'm hanging out with
It's your boy Mylez Vinci, straight out of Florida, Orlando to be precise, artist,
Central Florida.
beatmaker, Central. Yes, sir.
So is it safe to assume you're a Disney kid or a Universal kid?
I'm not really either or.
You're a rapper kid. You're a 90s hip hop kid, which is why we're talking today. So tell us a little bit about your background. I know you because we've been doing some Logic Pro training together,
Yes,
but
sir.
introduce yourself to the audience a little bit.
I've been doing music since I was young. Like I started off with just singing, and then it went from singing to beat making. I started making beats on Audacity.
That sounds painful.
It was, it was, because I mean, yeah, you had the metronome, but you had to manually quantize them shit.
Everything, you had to
Still,
manually
you had to
copy and paste everything.
repeat all of that shit. So
Yeah,
it was,
because I know I blew your mind when I showed you the locators and like rearranging your project with that stuff.
man, listen, this man right here is the GOAT when it comes to these key commands with Logic. Y'all gotta subscribe to the channel. If you don't, you a lost cause. I don't know what you're doing with yourself, but
Appreciate the kind words. But so you started out on Audacity. Now, were you rapping too, or just singing, or were you
I was doing a
making
little bit of
beats?
both.
Okay,
I was
okay,
rapping and just singing first, and
right,
then I started getting into beat making when I was like 21 because I was living in New York at the time, and
right,
all I had
right.
on me was Audacity. I had my PC.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, let me just find some drum breaks and just take some, try to, make my own tempo. Of course, the metronome did help, but only, it can only help but so much on
Right,
Audacity.
right, right.
It ain't like Logic where they got the quantizing features.
And the flex time feature that can just
Hmm.
set it all back on track for you.
Right. And even if you were to slow something down on Audacity, it just sounds nasty.
Yeah,
It
yeah.
sounds so nasty.
So when did you switch over to the dark side, aka the Mac and Logic?
I switched over in 2017. I went to Orlando Tech. Shout out to Orlando Tech. I had some teachers and peers that kind of helped me out. My friend Chad, Mr. Cobo, Keith Cobo. Shout out to Keith Cobo at Orlando Tech.
Right
Carl
on.
Borden. You know what I'm saying? Those guys really were big influencers in my time over there
Right,
and
right.
still after. So
And they were the ones that got you to consider switching to the Mac, or had you already switched to the Mac at that point in time?
I started before I got there, but I was
Hmm.
nervous to even mess with that thing completely. I skipped over the GarageBand. Normally a beginner would go
Yeah,
straight to,
it's worth skipping over.
yeah, I
They
skipped
need
over
to add a
that.
few key commands and things to make GarageBand a little bit more voiceover friendly, in my opinion.
Right, right.
So, and we're talking about the Mac version here, not iOS. So,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. So you
Um,
kind of went right to Logic, basically,
yeah, straight to Logic.
right on. And so once you kind of got there, you started making your beats and stuff, finding that an easier way to go than using Audacity, I imagine.
I was going ham. I mean, when I first started using Logic, I'd be up to like 8 in the morning, just working on stuff, putting stuff together. Before I really,
Uh, you caught the
I
disease, I see.
yeah, but I started with just stock sounds, like just the stock sound, because I didn't know how to put samples in yet. Once I figured out how to put the samples in, it was over from there. I
Right,
started
right.
finding, drum kits online, and I was like,
Putting your
ooh,
own kits together. And
mm-hmm.
in your case, you're, as I alluded to earlier, a bit of a '90s old school kid in a sense. You know, not
Yeah.
to say you make everything sound like the '90s, but you bring a lot of that vibe to the stuff you make.
My thing is, I try to fuse the two sounds together, so like that, the new generation and the OGs could, vibe out in the same spot, and not have to bump heads. Of course, they'll have hip hop debates and stuff, but who wouldn't want to have that? That's fun to have.
Right, right. So being able to get a hold of the sampler and finding all these vintage sounding kits and stuff you could use was probably just like someone opening the bank vault for you, I assume.
Man, it was either through drum kits or just finding songs themselves with break beats, and I
Right,
just
right,
take the break beat. Even if it was from today's music, I could still find a spot in the song where there's nobody speaking or there's no other instruments going on but the drums, which is
hmm
very rare, but still, it's fun.
Yeah,
They're
and
beautiful.
that's something that, just watching you work, I've noticed that it's kind of like your specialty is chopping up these samples from songs, even just like, melodic patterns, chord patterns, et cetera, just like where there's no vocals, and
Mm-hmm.
turning them into your own instruments and sampler and playing in your own stuff with them.
That is fun.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, me and Steve are working on a beat that I came up with for this train that I'm doing, where I took some old Isaac Hayes records. You know what I'm saying? Shout out to the Hayes family. Took some Isaac Hayes records and chopped them up the way I wanted and threw some trap drums over it.
Yeah.
Super fire.
And I think in that particular one, you use the Hayes sample, but then like we customized one of the Logic drum kits and threw
Mm-hmm.
a couple other patches
EQ
from
the
the library in
reverb,
there on top of it to kind of fill it out a little bit more.
right? EQ the
And
reverb, doing a piano, a harp to give it more of that,
so, that's kind of how we kind of take advantage of what we have access to out of the box, because that's one of the things that I didn't think you were aware of before we started working together, was that you weren't stuck with the kits they gave you, but you could mix and match from all the kits they gave you and kind of make like the appropriate kit for your song, and then
That's fire.
blending in all the other elements that you got out of the library with your sample and kind of making it your own thing. So
Yes, sir.
so yeah, it's there's a lot of cool stuff in there that it's someone like you that's been doing it for as long as you have and have such a passion for it, man. It's great watching you like learn some of these other things that you didn't necessarily realize were in there that you could do with it. And I think in a way it's kind of lifted a burden off of you in a sense, so now you don't have to rely
Mhm.
so heavily on external stuff. You have a lot of good stuff there that you can kind of bring in with your external stuff in a sense.
Oh yeah, that's when you showed me that, was like, wait, because the Logic version that I have now, they got producer packs. I'm like, what?
Yep.
Nah, wait a second. Hold on. I'm about to do, I'm about to do some ill stuff with this right here.
Right. And then you're like, yeah, I like this clap, but I don't like this snare. I don't like this kick. And I was like, well, swap the kick out for a different one. So
Right, right.
you were kind of off to the races once we kind of got going with that stuff. And you're like, all right, I'm gonna lay down a whatever now. All right, I don't like this hat. Let me go find a different hat. So,
hmm
but today we're gonna talk about sampling, which is your specialty, as I said earlier. And there's a new feature in the sampler that I've not talked about on the channel yet. So I figured you would be the perfect person to introduce that to everybody on Logic, man.
Oh
So I'm gonna let you
yeah.
take over the show, and I'm just gonna sit back with my popcorn and enjoy.
All right, so I have my session up ready. Now, this right here, as you can hear what I'm doing, I'm actually playing keys from a sample that I had chopped. I have them mapped out. However, it's basically based off how many chops you want in this particular way. So you command T.
You import it like a record in the Logic, find a spot with like just the chords or the drums or whatever it is you want to use, and
Yeah,
then
basically
you're just like
chop that.
splitting those into the regions you want, selecting all those regions and throwing them into a sampler.
hmm
And then
that's
now you're playing those as an instrument of their own.
right. Like I have this one right here that I started with. It was when I was just playing earlier.
hmm That's essentially the beat with the drums and everything, right? And not, but you're still playing
Yeah,
it kind of like its own instrument.
right.
Right
Because I
on.
have it like I was saying previously, like it all depends on how many chops you want. Like
hmm
this one, I think I have like maybe 16 chops
Right.
all laid across the
So
keyboard.
you
So
basically took basically brought a song in, got it down to just the part of the song you wanted, and then split it into 16 different regions, and then selected all those
mhm.
regions and put them into a sampler with Control E.
Yeah, pretty much.
Right. And now you can kind of like play different keys on the keyboard to play like a different chord progression or whatever with those chords.
hmm And my favorite is what they have now. They didn't have this before. Me and Steve talked about this. The mapping evenly across the keyboard. They didn't have that. So that's what I'm pretty much going to demonstrate too. I have a hi-hat already copied on my clipboard. I'm going to paste it in the session and basically explain how you can map it across the keyboard evenly. Like I have a 61 key,
You got a lot of keys to play with.
pretty much.
So you went into Finder, you found the hat sample in whatever folder it is in Finder, you copied it. So now
Mhm.
you're gonna you're in Logic, you're gonna paste it. So paste that sample into Logic, right?
Full screen.
Right. Yeah, I'm gonna do that right now.
All right.
Logic Pro.
Excuse me.
Mixer. Group.
Let's go to the
Tracks. Group.
tracks.
Tracks. Group. Tracks header. Track 3 that you
I only got 3 tracks in here right now.
Track 3 that you.
So when I paste this hat right here, give it a second.
Logic Pro is not respond. Paste.
Get a minute.
One bar, one bar, one beat, one.
That's it. I'm gonna mute the speech for y'all so y'all can hear better.
Speech muted.
This one hit, it's only one region, and there's a way now that you can
Speech unmute.
Map it across the keyboard. So I have it in here now.
One bar, one beat, one.
And I'm going to Control E.
In dialog, regions selected. Transient markers. Radio
regions.
Button. Instrument. Drum machine designer. Radio button. Alchemy. Radio button.
Sampler's already checked.
Sampler selected. Radio button.
Or selected rather.
Create one-shot zones. Instrument name unchecked. Checkbox.
Now this is. I don't think I'm gonna need it for this one because it's a hat, so I'm just gonna put it in there.
Instrument name. You are currently on
So just before you continue, can you talk about the one-shot checkbox there and what that does for people not familiar with that?
Okay, so basically the one-shot checkbox is you can either have it to where as soon as you let it go, it'll stop playing, or you can change it to where as soon as you let it go, it'll continue on.
And you're talking about let go of the key on your MIDI controller.
Yeah, on your MIDI controller, yeah. As soon as you let go of the key on your MIDI controller.
Now, which way is which? If you check it,
instrument error hit.
If you check it, it'll automatically like stop as soon as you let it go.
Right. And if you don't check it, it's just gonna
continue
on even after you let go of the key. Now, this is a hat. This is a short sample, so it almost doesn't really matter in this case.
Right. Exactly. That's what I was basically saying.
But you want it to ring out anyway as naturally as possible, so you probably don't want to turn on one-shot mode for this.
No.
Right. Gotcha.
Now, I have it.
Trigger note range.
It says trigger note range. When you go here,
see music sharp sign -2. 1.
I always have it at here because it's the first key on my keyboard.
It's the lowest note on your keyboard, right? C -2.
Yeah, it's the lowest one. And then I have it set to
see music sharp sign 3, 61.
All the way up to 61 because mine is the 61 key.
Right. And I think even if you leave it on the highest one at G8 or whatever it is, it's still just you can just transpose your keyboard up and down to get to the higher ones if you really want to.
Exactly.
So, yeah.
You got the if you have a MIDI controller that has an octave feature on the slide, right next to where the pitch wheel and the mod wheel is at, you'll be able to go left to right.
Yep. So you almost necessarily don't have to worry about these two pop-up buttons. You can just leave it on the defaults, and you'll just use your pitch or not your transpose feature, your octave up and down feature to go up or down to lower or higher octaves.
Exactly. Pretty much.
Yep.
So I have it where I have it set to.
Map evenly across trigger note range.
Now this box is already checked, so it's gonna automatically map them across the keyboard.
Yeah.
All I got to do now is hit OK.
Okay.
And
track
now
4 error hit. Closing dialog track 3 that you wouldn't heard.
That's me doing that all the way across the keyboard now. So
it pitches up and down the keyboard for you. Now this is nice because you used to only be able to do this in Quick Sampler, and Quick Sampler is a little bit more challenging to get stuff into. So
that's why you
nice.
use some like VOCR for the Quick Sampler.
Yeah, VOCR makes it a little bit easier if you don't want to have to use like Keyboard Maestro macros, or you don't want to have to drag.
Right. If you don't got it, go to logicband.com/VOCR.
I'll point you to where you can get VOCR.
That's right.
But now you don't have to use Quick Sampler because now you can just import a sample, select that region, Control E, select the sampler, give the sampler a name, choose the range on your keyboard you want, and then just make sure you check that box that says map evenly across the keyboard. Hit OK. And just like that, you have a sample pitched up and down the keyboard for you. You can almost play a melody on that hi-hat.
Right, if I really wanted to.
So, yeah, man. So shows how you'd use something like this in a project, because you got this project open, so now it just added the sampler track in that project for you, right?
Mm-hmm.
So now you
So
just like lay down a hi-hat part in the project with it, right?
yeah, I pretty much just do a simple, simple pattern like that,
Right.
and then
And now if you want to do
basically,
something like that too, you can also pull up the note repeater as well.
right, exactly.
Yeah,
That's a real good one, a good tool to use as well for those of
right.
y'all that like to do triplets on
Mm-hmm.
y'all hats to make them sound extra fancy.
Yep,
No repeater is your friend. You
yep.
know what I mean?
And the nice thing is you can kind of combine all these tools. So you bring your own hat sample in or your own snare sample in or whatever. But then once you have that sampler instrument loaded on a track, you can also still use the note repeater with it and do all the fancy
Hmm.
stuff you can do with the note repeater. So show us what your
Hmm.
tracks look like now that you've gotten that in there.
So now I
Track
have,
4 air hit up. Group.
this is the actual, let's see, where we
Track
at?
3 betcha wouldn't hurt me.
I
Group.
have
Track 4
the
air hit.
audio file, which I'm gonna get rid of because there's no use for it now.
Selection deleted. Track 4 air hit up.
And I have the sample. Now,
1 bar. 1 bar
what you
1 beat
want to
1 division.
do, because it's still gonna play there, you might want to delete that selection.
Selection
Yeah,
deleted.
it puts a region on the track when it creates the sampler instrument. It puts a single region on the track for you. So you might want to just delete that region, as you were saying.
Of course.
Yeah.
1 bar 1.
Now
2, 3, 4 bars 1 beat 1. 4 bars 1.
I
Beat 1
have,
division 1. 1.
I'm
2,
gonna
3 bars.
start at,
3 bars 1 beat 1
this
division.
is at 3, so I'm gonna just, do a little something and then
2 bars 1 beat.
capture record it just to show y'all what it does.
2 bars 1 beat 1. Division 1 tick.
Now,
Quanti.
all I got to do is quantize that
1 bar 1 beat
it's
1.
the way I want
2.
it,
2 bars.
and this is what you get. See? Oh, I got to capture record still. Excuse me. So I capture recorded it now.
2 bars.
Should be automatically.
Quantize.
And basically, that's how you just go from there. You just build your beat from there
Yep.
and do the same, repeat the same process. It's basically lather,
Now you can
rinse,
just lay it
repeat.
in wherever you want to lay it in the track. Now, I want to call out something you just did there. Capture to record in Shift R is the key command for
Yes.
that. That is one of
Yes.
those things that I think is an overlooked or often forgotten about feature in Logic. So you
Man.
didn't actually hit R to record that. You just went to the part of the song where you knew, it's like, all right, let me try this idea out. You liked what you played. You
Mhm.
liked the performance you did.
Yes.
So because you didn't record it, it's like, oh man, I wish I recorded that, right? You just
Right.
Shift R. It actually grabs the performance you did, puts it as a region on a track as if you recorded it, and then you
Mhm.
quantized it also as if you recorded it. So
Right. Pretty
Shift
much.
R, man, that is, you're messing around and you did something cool that you liked and you weren't recording. Shift R is your
Man,
friend.
I'm telling you.
Yeah, it's a MIDI. It's for MIDI tracks or software instrument tracks. There's a different way to do it with audio tracks, but
Yeah, I got to figure
man,
that out. I want to figure that one out. That's because
remind me. I'll have to make a tutorial on how to do that one. But yeah, there's a way to do it with audio tracks as well. But man, for you making beats using MIDI for 90% of your work, Shift R is a good key command to learn.
right, because you could have a fire take.
Yep,
You can have a dope take and be like, damn, I should have recorded it. Shift R.
Shift R.
Hit that as soon as you say that.
Yep,
I
Shift R.
promise you. You gonna look back. Like, I got it. I finally got it. I got it.
Yep. Like a lot of times when I'm working with people and we're just like kind of messing around and coming up with ideas, and they're like, "Ah, that was hot," and Shift R.
Hmm.
Like they're at the keyboard, I'm at the computer,
Right.
and we're just messing around with ideas, working on something. Shift R, man,
Yes,
because
sir.
you can
I'm
always,
telling
you can always come back to that once you have it as a region in the project. So
Yes, sir.
all right, man. That was awesome. Thank you for sharing that. Thanks for showing us a little bit of your workflow.
No
If you
doubt.
guys want me to bring him back on and show you how to chop some samples and stuff like that and how he does it, leave a comment below and we can make that happen.
Yes, sir.
Thanks for coming on and showing this stuff to everyone.
No doubt, man. Shout out to the Logic Band. You know what I'm saying?
That's right. Subscribe, like, share,
And comment.
and comment. Yeah, let us know what you think of this. Let us know if you got any questions. I will link to some other tutorials in the description. All the other stuff we talked about, the note repeater, there are tutorials on that on the channel already. Whatever other stuff we talked about, just check the description. And I'll try to remember to put it in the pinned comment as well, so that way it's easier to find some of those links. Until next time, as I always say, happy recording, or in this case, happy beat making.
Happy sampling.